Okay, we are going to continue modeling the human face on our topological journey here. When last we left, we had worked out some contouring on the nose, but we're going to need to add some additional geometry around the nose. You'll notice I have soft select on, so I'm going to go ahead and tap B because I don't need that right now. I do have symmetry on, which means it's going to, symmetrically select things across the geometry. But I'm going to continue focusing on the nose, and what I need to do here is actually select some edges. I'm going to do this with smooth preview on. It really doesn't matter which way you do it, but because at the end of the day you're selecting the geometry. I'm going to right click here and go to vertex, or sorry, I'm going to right click here and go to edge, and then I'm going to double click. Now you'll notice that it's not selecting the edge loop, and that's because every time it runs into a pole, there's a pole, there's a pole, these 3 and 5 pointed or edged points. What you don't want to see in your model, at least not the way that we're working with it, is anything more than 4 sides or more than 5 sides meeting at a point. But it won't select the edge loop if it's interrupted by a pole. So 3 and so on. So right there it won't select across those, but if I were to double click here, you can see it went from here to here because there's 3 and 3 and it selected those along the edge. If I double click here, you get the idea, right? But what I'm actually trying to select at this point are these edges. So I'm going to use Shift to select. Now I could also use Tab if I wanted to, but it's up to you. So I'm going to use Shift and select around these edges here, okay, around the nose. And I'm going to double check that I have the right ones by sort of smoothing it and make sure that they're in good shape. And then we can use an edge bevel tool if it works. Now I have seen this tool become a little buggy before, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and Shift, right click, and go bevel edge. Sometimes when you see a little square here, it's not a bad idea to click on that because it tells you what the tool's settings are. So if I let go of that, you can see that the width is there and the segments are there and the depth, and it's uniform and so on and so forth. What other options do we have besides uniform? You've got auto and so on. So we say uniform, and I'm going to go ahead and close it. And then if I Shift click and say bevel edge, it actually gave me a desirable result, I think. What happened to me in the past was I think I had some flaws in the geometry and it was no longer symmetrical, but as you can see, it went ahead and did its job. Okay. As referenced in a previous video, we referenced this thing over here. This is the channel box layer editor. You can see we're starting to build up some history. It's not a lot of history, but if you have limited RAM on your computer, limited memory on your computer, you're going to periodically want to delete the history on the model. I'm going to right click, go to object mode, click on this button here. You can also go to edit and delete history, or you can go to edit and delete by type and go to history. You've got non-deformer history as an option there, or you can hit Alt-Shift-D and away the history goes. So once we've got this additional geometry here, we have the opportunity to continue forming it. Now the other way that we could have done this is we could have actually done the polygon bevel as well, and that would achieve a similar result if we selected those polygons around the nose, right? But this is what we're going with for now, and now we have a little bit more of an opportunity to form the nose because we have more geometry to do it with. You will notice we've got some bunching of vertices over here. That might not be a good thing. It depends on what we're going for, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of course correct on that. You can see that they're very close. I'm going to go here in the front view. I might choose to use soft select here, but actually in this case I'm going to leave it off and just move these things down there. And again, we're going to kind of try to create some favorable edge flow. Eventually this is going to be the mouth, so with anticipating that, I kind of know what I want to be doing ahead of time a little bit to get that shaped up, but there it is. Okay. Also, don't forget to save as you go, which I did not do here. So we finished step 3, but I'm going to go ahead and save this scene as step 3, and we are actually on step 4, so I'll save that after the fact. But we are going to continue moving forward, so don't forget to save as you go. Also, if you hit Control-Alt-S, it will save another version of the existing file automatically. If you've made changes, it will actually create another file that you can use as a backup. So either way, don't forget to save. Right click here, we're going to face. We're going to select the faces underneath the nose region here. And again, you will have wanted to shape this into something that looks more or less effective as a nose. If it's, if you still have a lot of things that are way out of whack, you probably want to go back and just work on forming up your geometry effectively, kind of like those little tweaks that I've done along the way. Is this perfect? Nope, doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be available for deformation later on. And so, making sure that the geometry is generally pretty consistent in terms of the polygon flow, where the features are, the overall sort of shape of the face is not unimportant, because as we move forward, it's going to become more and more important that that be the case. I'm going to use that same old tool again, shift right click and go to bevel face. I'm going to bevel inward. You'll notice that it's pretty tight around the edges there. I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of a course correction. This isn't bad, but not exactly what I was going for. So I'm going to actually scale this. Now I could just scale it uniformly, right, which will bring it in a little bit, but you'll notice that it sort of pinches the nose. Or I could scale it along the Z, which again creates kind of a different issue there. What's interesting is that I have different options here. When I double click on scale, I can select axis orientation of object, world, component, okay, which is actually this piece, and the component now is scaling along the XYZ of the component. In this case, this would be the Y, and this is a little more consistent with what I'm interested in. What you have to remember, though, is that you have this on because it's very easy to forget about that, and then you've created a problem for yourself as far as working with geometry later on. So if I do this thing, if I scale along component here, it's going to kind of produce a different result. But this is more along the lines of what I'm going for, getting set up to get those nostrils going. So now what I'm going to do, so you've got this edge loop here. I think you can probably see where we're going here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and scale this in. Now notice the scale here is off according to being on component. I'm going to go back to the world or object. I'm going to go to object here, and I'm going to scale this inward because I want those nostrils to be just a little bit bigger in terms of where they are. And then I'm going to go to vertex. Again, these are all tweaks that you don't necessarily have to make. I'm going to make them because I know this is more along the lines of the shape that I want for the face, and it may just be generally good. But there it is, okay? So then I'm going to go over to these polygons that are going to form the nostrils here. Always keeping an eye on our other views over here, that's why they're there. But these are going to be the nostrils. So I'm going to go ahead and go to face, and I'm going to click these, and I'm going to shift right click, and I'm going to go to bevel face. And now we have beveled inward, okay? What I can tell you right off the bat here is that these are too wide. So I'm going to come over here into the front view, and I'm just going to scale them down uniformly on either side, like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw them upward like this into the nose. Now you can see if I bring them too far up, then they go through the backside of the nose. So you do need to use some judgment here about how that's going to work. I can tell you right now, just based on looking at this, this is going to need a lot of work. But one of the first things I'm going to do is go ahead and go to face here, and I'm going to draw this inward a little bit more this way. I'm going to go to vertex, draw these inward this way, and then kind of open up the nostril just a little bit so I have more to work with, because it's not really round. And I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I guess it depends on what model you're using or reference you're using to create the model. But at least at this point, we're starting to get to a point where we have some complete anatomy around the face. So that is that. I'm also not really liking, if you look at this way, I'm not really liking how this is so tight in terms of the spacing here. This really should be more consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here to the front view, or maybe the perspective view, and just take the edges and kind of move them inward a little bit. I can move this one. I'm going to use the side view for this, or I'm going to move on the YZ plane, and see if I can't get that a little more straightened out. I'm going to do the same thing here, just kind of scale this inward and so on until I get this a little bit more evenly spaced. Okay, this is definitely something we'll look at later, but we are in pretty good shape here. Yeah, so that's that. That's the nostrils of the nose. Again, depending on where we're going to wind up going to get this thing shaped up, we're just going to add a few little things here. Notice what happens now that I have all this geometry to work with. I can take some of these points and actually start moving some things around to conform to sort of a more generic looking model. Keeping an eye on edge flow. You can see we've got some jagged edges here, so I'm going to go ahead and go in and maybe move some things around until I get this situated to where I want it in terms of just the generic head shape that I'm after. Nothing too interesting. I'm going to go ahead and pull the nostrils in here a little bit. Pull some things up. You see some inconsistency in spacing between these pieces here, so I'm going to go ahead and just make them more consistent and flowy. Get that edge flow going, and this is just going to continue to work on forming a shape that is generically usable for any reference, easily generically usable for any reference that we would wind up having. So again, you can see this sort of tears down this way a little bit. We're probably going to want to move these things. You can sort of add thickness to the nostril if you wanted to here, right? But this is that's the smooth preview of the figure. And you don't forget that we do have access to soft selection. So if I select these faces here and I wanted to, widen or not widen the nose, I can do that kind of easily here. I can scale with soft selection on, so I can do things like that. I can move vertices around with soft selection on. So I have access to those tools as I'm moving forward and conforming until we get to where we want to be with the shape. So that's it for this video. We've created some nostrils here. We're going to start working on the eyes next video.